Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Podcast after a busy weekend of fights all over the world again. I'm glad that we're back in the rhythm of it, right, Mike?
Yeah, it was one of those ones where you had to, I think I had my laptop and my TV out because we had Frank Warren in the morning, PBC, Top Rank, and UFC if you're an MMA fan.
If you're an MMA fan. I saw, I think, a couple days ago, we tweeted out like schedules of the fight weekend and stuff. So, you know, if people have follow us on Twitter or whatever, I think we just do it on Twitter, but we tweet out schedules and stuff like that. So, which included MMA, right?
Yeah, I put the whole lot on there. Just so everybody knows, you know, you can kind of tell what time everything's on and coordinate instead of trying to find, you know, the individual times everywhere. So,
right. But just jumping straight right into it. This past Saturday, the 29th of August, from the BT Sport studio on ESPN Plus and BT Sport. Would you call him I think we talked about this last week. Would you call him a contender now, or would you call him a prospect still? And we're talking about Daniel Dubois.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I would say prospect just because he's 22 years old, but, you know, he's already kind of, you know, gathered quite a few belts. Obviously not world championships, but, you know, like internationals and stuff like that. You know, I'd say, you know, when he fights and if he beats Joe Joyce, you know, I would then say, you know, he has to be a contender. You know, I'm sure Joe Joyce has probably got in the top 10, top 15 rankings in most of the governing bodies. So, you know, once or if he beats Joe Joyce, then I think, he'd go on to be a contender. But, you know, slowly but surely, you know, the heavyweights, you know, normally kind of really come to fruition, you know, later in life, you know, grow, get that man strength, you know, fight a lot of different people. You know, Joe Joyce is turning 35 years old and he's only just turned pro. You know, Tyson's, you know, 30, early 30s. Anthony Joshua's, you know, late 20s. I think apart from Mike Tyson, it's pretty much an anomaly for somebody to really hit the scene at a young age and win a world championship.
That's true. Yeah, definitely an anomaly, Mike Tyson is. But as I was touching on initially, that we kind of sidetracked, Daniel Dubois gets a second-round TKO over Ricardo Snijders, who was down 3 times in the first round, Mike. I mean, doesn't that really much tell you how that rest of that fight was going to play out?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those fights where you could kind of tell early on, you know, never really heard of, you know, Ricardo Snijders, and, you know, it was kind of just when Daniel Dubois was going to get him out of there, especially, you know, with dropping him early on, and, you know, the referee could have really have stopped it after he'd gone down 3 times in the first. But I think the fact that the last one was so close to the bell, if not at the bell, if I remember rightly, Snijders got up, you know, he had that, you know, minute to recover, but after that he just, you know, it was one-way traffic, you know, good body work. You know, I thought Dubois looked pretty good. Switching it up, he kind of throws his punches without much effort as well. You know, doesn't waste a lot of energy behind them. So I think he's, you know, really getting better. Like every time out now, you can see that he's learning a lot, and just, you know, slowly but surely, there's no need to rush him up to that world level. I think Frank Warren is building him, you know, really well. And if we didn't have the coronavirus this year, I think we probably would have seen him a lot more.
No, I agree. I think Frank Warren is, you know, semi taking his time with him, and then like you said, the COVID situation obviously affected his progression, obviously. But, you know, kind of going back to that fight, kind of touching on what you said, you know, Snijders was down 3 times in the first round, but I mean, I think everybody knew, like, it wasn't a secret that Snijders, or whoever the opponent was to be across Daniel Dubois this past weekend, should have been an automatic win, you know, because like you said, there's now a fight looming with Joe Joyce, who are Would you say both of them are pretty much in the same spot in their careers right now in boxing?
I think Joyce needs it more, just due to the fact, he's like 35 years old. If he loses, he's going to really have to have a lot of time to rebuild. So he'd have to jump back in there with quite a big opponent straight away. Daniel Dubois because of the fact that he's 22 years old, they can go away, rebuild, come back, build up his resume again. Because like we touched on, a lot of heavyweights, they go till 35, 40 years old because, they're not making weight.
Right.
So they don't have to, slim down, take all that energy out of themselves by trying to make weight. They just get in the ring at whatever the hell they want. Look at Jerome Miller.
Yeah, exactly. There was one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you saw any of the post-fight interviews that Dubois did or maybe where there were quotes or something, but I feel like I saw something where he said after the fight, I don't know if it was like a press conference or virtual press conference or in the ring or what have you, but I remember seeing a quote on Twitter, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's like it seemed like it was real. I just want to throw it out there because right before we came on air, we talked about the fake Frank Warren that got everybody this past weekend. So, but there was a quote that he said pretty much where he was like, "Oh, hopefully I can get a proper opponent for my next fight," something along those lines, pretty much. I mean, to me. And you tell me, Mike, if I'm maybe looking too much into it. To me, that's a pretty big insult to the opponent that you just beat or you just have across from you. Like you're pretty much saying the guy I just had or I just beat sucks, and hopefully I get somebody way better than that. Like that's. I mean, I get that happens and we know that happens in the sport, but that was a pretty disrespectful comment.
The problem is, I think, is Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, unfortunately, both aren't, great with the media. So I don't know, maybe it's just one of those things that he said and didn't realize how disrespectful and kind of insulting that was. Or was he trying to build hype, and just
maybe
be arrogant? And kind of, was it like a low blow to Joe Joyce, kind of saying because he's scheduled opponent? But the only problem is when you read between the lines, when you listen to Frank Warren and even Sam Jones, which is obviously Joe Joyce's manager,
right?
It doesn't sound like it's set for October. There's no.
I don't think it is. I don't think
we're
going to see it. We're not going to see it.
I think because of the coronavirus and the amount of money that would generate on the gate, is Frank Warren having second thoughts? Are they going to try and push it back to November, December, or maybe even next year? Because you do hear rumblings that we may see some kind of attendance in November. So,
I think that Frank Warren especially was banking on the fact that Dubois and Joyce essentially, but probably more Dubois, can draw a pretty significant crowd in the UK for this fight before COVID hit. I think Frank Warren was banking on that fact, and obviously it would have looked good. It would have been great for Daniel Dubois' career in terms of his stock and his marketability, because then you're building him up, and then you see all these people come out like, oh yeah, he sold out the whatever, I don't know what there's like potential venues, the O2 or something, but oh yeah, Daniel Dubois sold out that. So in terms of marketability, I think Frank Warren, that's what I'm saying. Like this fight's not going to happen unless there's a crowd, because they want. If Daniel Dubois was like an Anthony Joshua right now, like he was already established. He's proven that he draws fans. He's draws money, and he's marketable, and he wins, then it's more likely possible we would have seen this fight in front of no fans, because he already he pulls in the ratings or whatever, hypothetically speaking. But because Daniel Dubois is still like we were talking about, he's still rising. Frank Warren's still building him up, and obviously a lot of people know who he is. I mean, a lot of boxing people and stuff like that, and you're raising his stock. Obviously, Frank Warren wants fans there. So when people watch it on TV and see clips after the fight of fans going crazy, especially if Dubois wins or whatever, like it helps his marketability and raises his profile. So, I mean, that's my take. What do you think?
I agree. I don't know if Frank Warren is really in the position to, put on, a big card with Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois headlining it. and kind of just treat it as like a loss leader. It's kind of just money that they're going to lose, kind of like Eddie Hearn said he did with the fight camp. He didn't really make any money from that. He just lost it, but he wanted to give fans something, because you need something to watch, during the down period. You don't want fans, kind of forgetting about boxing and turning away, maybe watching the UFC instead, liking that, and then maybe never coming back to boxing. Kind of.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. I can kind of understand if they don't put it on. I'm sure Joyce and Triple D are, demanding a rather large purse between them, being heavyweights. But I'd like to see it. Selfishly, I'd love to see it. It's a great British dust-up. I was surprised even when they made the first one, which, obviously was going to go ahead until the coronavirus, put a stop to that.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. We'll see. But you're right. In terms of Joe Joyce being 35 years old, he's definitely going to try to accommodate more money for this fight, because he probably sees it. Hey, you know what? Like, this could be my last chance to get like a significant fight, if any, because you're right. That always slips my mind that he's 35 years old. He's older. Like, and Dubois is what, 22, 23? So
it's 22, yeah.
So. Like a loss to Dubois obviously wouldn't be good, but like he has more than enough years ahead of him to at least recover and rebrand and figure it out. Unlike Joe Joyce might not have that much left. So it's definitely an interesting matchup. I like it. It's kind of like I wouldn't say a crossroads fight, but it's intriguing, I guess. But hopefully they make it and we can touch on it as the months go by here. Also on that card, Sonny Edwards remains undefeated at 15-0 with a unanimous decision win over Thomas Esomba. What'd you think of that fight, Mike?
Good. I thought it was a really good kind of breakout fight for Sonny Edwards. Kind of Thomas Esomba was one of those guys that, he loses, but he's kind of hard to look good against. Sonny Edwards really just stuck to his boxing, very light on his feet, great feet, in fact. Just boxed him. Thomas Esomba couldn't settle his feet and get into any kind of rhythm. And then Sonny Edwards kind of at one point slipped and looks like he went over on his ankle, changed to southpaw and did the same thing for the last, I think it was 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds. Just boxed him. Great performance. I think now he's IBF international. So obviously, he's highly ranked in the IBF. I believe he's ranked in the top 15 in all of them. So, really should be pushing for, either trying to get a title shot or, trying to make himself mandatory now. But, he's in a stacked division. You've got, Cal Yafai, Joshua Franco, which obviously now is the WBA, right. Chocolatito, Estrada, Johan and Cajas. I think he's the IBF title holder. So, right. If any, that would be the kind of the route you would see him go down. And not that any of them are weak links, but right. Cajas is probably the less proven than all the other guys. Maybe Joshua Franco, because some were surprised that he got that. So, right. But everyone wants the big names, in that division. Everybody wants to fight a Roman Chocolatito or a Estrada. No one's going to just give up a free title shot to Sonny Edwards over in the UK. So I think it may have to be the mandatory route. Do you think that Chocolatito would be the biggest payday as an opponent for anybody else in that division? Like when people say like, okay, I want to fight this guy because I'm going to make the most money with him, it would be Chocolatito? Or Estrada, because I think Estrada with the Mexican fans would probably demand. Probably, yeah. I would imagine Estrada would be up there. Chocolatito with the hardcores, and maybe because a lot of people, he's kind of more in the general boxing hemisphere now, I would say, because of DAZN, and a lot of people have been campaigning for Chocolatito to get $1 million payday. You remember that was going around on Twitter? Like, you know what? I'm surprised about that. Are they saying that like he's never gotten $1 million payday? Like, because he was on all those Superfly cars. He was on a Triple G under like a couple of them. Like he was on some significant HBO cards over the last 5 or 6 years or whatever. Are you telling me that he's never gotten paid $1 million? Is that pretty much what they're saying? Yeah, I think because of that's surprising. Attractive weight division, really, until. I think that was why Tom Loeffler was able to kind of get all of those guys together, Estrada, Chocolatito, Rung Vung Sai, and kind of make that Superfly card because they weren't demanding a lot of money. And if I remember rightly, I think we retweeted California State Athletic Commission's numbers for the fight, and they were like $50,000.
Man,
obviously they get more on the back end. We know that, but to be so low just to the California State Athletic Commission, it's not a lot of money those guys are making because it's not an attractive. It's not one of those like the heavyweight division, the middleweight division. 147 since Floyd. Those are the attractive weight divisions that everybody knows.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah, I guess that's a surprise to me because I was taking into account the events that Chocolatito's been on over the years, Triple G's cards, Superflies. He was headlining Superflies. But I mean, if you kind of think about it critically, I guess it does make sense that he's never been paid that much or up at $1 million. Excuse me. But I mean, he's a champion now again. I think he's going to get it. I think he'll get $1 million again. But it just depends. It just depends on how it goes. But I don't know. I remember seeing that and I thought it was kind of crazy, but whatever. But before, do you think a Sonny Edwards can possibly beat like a Chocolatito or an Estrada?
If he tried to box him, I think Calify went in there and we all thought Calify had probably a 60-40, 70-30 chance of beating Chocolatito because of, I think we all thought Chocolatito was kind of like over the hill and, that was the best of him. But, he came in there with completely the wrong game plan. He really came in there, and fought Chocolatito's fight. And, is Sonny Edwards going to do that with Chocolatito? Like, getting in the ring with a legend at that weight division. So, Sonny Edwards has to really just go in there and, try and box the way that he wants to. And, that was a big step up for him. And I think he'd have to, it's another step up in my opinion, though. He'd really have to rise to the occasion just on the, the 15 fights that he's had. I would say, Chocolatito would be too much for him on his day.
Right.
But, Sonny's got to rise to the occasion and maybe he will, every time he steps up in the level of his opponent, Sonny Edwards does seem to, get in there and show you like another layer to how good he is as a boxer. So
you're right. Sonny Edwards better have a sunny day if he fights Chocolatito. So, but also on that card, Willie Hutchinson gets the first round TKO over Ben Thomas. What'd you think of Hutchinson's quick win?
I think we touched on it last week, really. Everyone out the gym says that, how good Hutchinson is. And this guy was really it was just overmatched and you could have finished it. Like you didn't probably need to knock him down that last time. Obviously he was a late step-in opponent because I think Luke Blackledge, I believe, failed his brain scan, so they had to pull him out. And,
that's right.
Ben Thomas, I think, got like 2 weeks notice before he was stepping in there. But, a big step up. I think he said he was going back and forth with Lerone Richards. I think he said that Lerone went and sparred with him and Willie was kind of, insinuating that he got the better of the spars. So, if Lerone Richards beats Umar Sadiq, that, Willie Hutchinson would like to fight him for the British title. So that's a huge step up, really going from a journeyman to a British title. But, Willie seems confident that he got the better of him in sparring recently. So
British titles, I mean, obviously everybody wants to be a world champion, but because, obviously that's the goal. But in your opinion, Mike, just because obviously you're English, if people can't tell, they can tell by your accent. Imagine people listening, they're just like, oh, that guy's not English. It's just like, what are you talking about? Listen to his accent. But are British titles really like that revered over there, or is it just pretty much like a stepping stone? How we look at it?
No, you don't really have an equivalent out here, but the British title is, I would say, just that one level below like a world title in terms of prestige. One, it's a good-looking title, honestly, kind of very similar to the Ring magazine in the way that it's made. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, on the way to a world title, they want to win the British title, I would say, more than a European, even more than the Commonwealth, which is obviously, in terms of really should be a bigger title because the Commonwealth is a larger scale than the British, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, honestly, everyone seems to want to win it when they turn pro. It's, they want to win the British and then, ultimately move on from there because, I think if you're a pro and you get offered like a WBA international title, or
Right.
a British title, I think everyone would probably take, the British title.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because we talked. I think you touched on it before, where you said we've talked about fighters, and they're just starting their career or whatever, and you've said, oh, I don't think they'll ever get past British level or British title level or something like that. So I've always wondered about that. I was like, what is there? What's the story behind these British titles things? But like you said, guy.
In the UK, they have like a stepping stone for every level. You get like Southern area, then
Right.
then English, British, Commonwealth, and then you go on obviously to those crazy obviously then there's European obviously, and then WBA International, WBA Silver.
That's an addition. That's crazy.
Yeah, so like over here in the US, you don't really have there isn't like a California title,
Right.
And then then obviously you work your way up. But in like Tyson Fury, I believe, if I remember rightly, I think he's done every single level. He did like
That's ridiculous.
He did like the Southern, then he went straight in like English, British, Commonwealth. And I think he said it once in an interview. There's not many people that's ever actually done every single step which he did.
Right. Man, that's crazy. But if it works out, I guess I just who runs these titles? Like, are they other sanctioning bodies that aren't affiliated with like WBA, WBO, those guys?
The British Board of Boxing.
Oh, it's them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. So
if you go to their website, you can see what they'll tell you, like the matchups and who the mandatory is, and the
Right.
purse bids for those belts and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. Is that a government agency technically, like the commission?
I don't.
Because
No.
how like the commissions over here are government agencies.
No, I don't believe so. I think it's. I think
private?
I believe so, because I think you can just make your own and then start one, because you got the British and Irish one that they give licenses to like Scott Harrison that should have retired years ago, and he's still fighting. And the time that when the British Board of Boxing banned David Haye and Chisora,
Right.
they got the license to fight in Britain from, I think it's the BIC, I think they're called. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, wow. This whole time, I thought the British Boxing Board of Control was a government agency, like it was like the California Commission. I thought it was the same thing.
I don't believe so.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. Well, I mean, either way, but they've been around for a long time, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe California will one day add titles like California title or LA County champion. Imagine stuff like that, like Los Angeles County champion. Like you get announced as that.
In a way as well, it's good for those guys that they love boxing and they want to compete, but they're never going to be British level, but they can be like the Southern area champions. So in the little area, they are the best in that small area. So it gives everybody like something to compete for.
Yeah, that's cool. I get it. Yeah, I'm for it. I'm open to maybe that'll come back to bite me in the ass, but I don't want to say we need more titles because we already complained enough. But it's an interesting idea to think about now that you've kind of shed some light on the details behind it, because I wasn't ever really aware of the intricacies behind the whole thing over there. I just always heard, oh, this guy's a Commonwealth champion, this guy's a British champion, and like you said, Southern area, and I'm just like, what the hell's going on over there? So, but it's cool, man. Also on the card, Sam Maxwell. We talked about this fight obviously last week. Sam Maxwell gets a unanimous decision win and remains undefeated at 14-0 over Joseph Hughes. I know Boxing Social shared the conversation we had about this fight throughout the last week, which is good. We had some people message us about Maxwell and Joe Hughes. What'd you think of Maxwell's performance, Mike?
I thought it was a good test. I thought, Sam Maxwell did well. Joe Hughes now it looks like is kind of slipping into like a gatekeeper mode after, recently being the European champion. But it was definitely a good test. Sam Maxwell, like he pushed him all the way. And then I think he really needs to step up now, look towards, British, Commonwealth, and maybe even European levels, Sam Maxwell. Nick Pete from the Fight Disciples put out a good one. A good matchup would be Robbie Davis Jr., from the same area. So that would be a good British dust-up. The only thing being is, Robbie Davis Jr. kind of gave Lewis Ritson a bit of a step up chance, because Richardson moved up in weight and, was kind of looking for a bigger opponent, called each other out, kind of backfired on Robbie Davis Jr. because he ended up losing to Lewis Richardson. So, is he going to want to do the same thing to Sam Maxwell? Because I would say, in my opinion, Robbie Davis Jr. is a bigger name at the minute. And, you should be looking up instead of looking down. So for Sam Maxwell, it seems like a good idea, but maybe not so much for Robbie Davis.
And moving on that card, David Adelaide gets the third round TKO over Phil Williams. This guy has 26 losses? Is that true, or is that a typo, Mike?
That's nothing for a British journeyman, Danny.
Oh my God! This. I thought, honestly, when I saw this, I thought it was a typo. It's not a typo. This guy has 26 losses. That's real.
Yeah. You need to immerse yourself in British boxing more, dude. You've got like Christian Late and guys like that have like 100 and something losses.
Wait, how is that? You never see that over here.
No, you don't really have like in the UK, you get like proper journeymen. So as long as you're not getting knocked out, you're giving, up and coming pros a solid 4 rounds and you're passing your medicals, then you could just keep competing. And, there are guys that, probably are good boxers, but knew they weren't going to make, the big money. So they just take fights weekly and they just turn themselves into a journeyman. They do 4 rounds, get paid, go back out the next week, just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And, they make it into a real skill.
That's ridiculous, man. 26 losses? Who does so he's went up there, what? He's fought 30 times and he's lost 26 of those bouts. Are you kidding me?
That's nothing. We'll get on a journeyman, a British journeyman, and they can go over it. I think it's such a crazy story.
That'd be interesting to have. You're right. Like, what if we get like the most active, like an active boxer who has the most losses in the sport?
Well, I'll reach out to.
I think that's an interesting interview. Like, hey, this guy has the most losses in the sport right now out of all the divisions. This guy has like 56 losses. And we're going to talk to him. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I want to do a journeyman one just to hear the stories, the craziness of it, just getting a fight at the last minute and, going up there, and it's just different, completely different outlook on the boxing life, isn't it?
That's crazy. But moving on, another card from the Microsoft Theater in downtown Los Angeles on Fox Sports. So a PBC card. Erislandy Lara gets the 12-round unanimous decision win over Greg Vendetti. And this was for the WBA Super Welterweight Championship. It was? Lara has a belt?
WBA regular, the IBO Super Welterweight, yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is the regular. Okay. Oh, that's right. You have regular, you got interim, you got whatever. I mean, I'll touch on Lara's performance for a little bit first. I mean, like, I think it was another textbook Lara performance in a sense. I feel like there was quite a few points, especially towards the end, where Lara could have like pushed on the gas a little bit more and stopped him, but he just he stays on that cruise control mode and he cruised to the unanimous decision win. I mean, I still like Lara. I know people think he's kind of boring sometimes, but he's got that slick Cuban style that is obviously tough to handle. Just ask Canelo. Some people say that Lara beat Canelo. But I like Lara. Obviously he's getting older and stuff, but he still has enough talent in himself to get world title shots and get world titles and get good paydays. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. And, unfortunately, it wasn't a great spectacle for us as fans to watch. Kind of just put it into cruise control. And I think early on you could kind of see that Vendetti was, massively out of depth. He couldn't really muster up any kind of attack. It was really just, kind of having that puncher's chance. And, he'd kind of jump in and, put his head down, and then kind of just tie himself up. And Lara, there's levels to this game. And, he was early on, you could see that he was probably just going to go through the motions and take it 12 rounds and, a good time to turn it off and put on the Top Rank show.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, Lara. So now he's. Who did they talk? I know they put a graphic on the screen during the event of pretty much all the major players at 154.
It's looking like he'll probably get the winner of Jamel Charlo and Rosario.
Is it Jamel or is it Jamel? Honestly, I never know which one it is, so I just say the 154 Charlo or the 160 Charlo. I don't know.
And it's hard to follow. But PBC have pretty much that whole division on lockdown, so they can kind of really pick and choose which matches they want to do, which ones make sense, which ones don't make sense. And I'm sure Julian Williams will be vying for a comeback fight, and then either get a shot at Jamel Charlo or Rosario, because obviously he lost his title to Rosario and then turned down the rematch initially to try and come back and reinvent himself, I guess.
Reinvent himself. But yeah, I'm glad. And, are they letting press into the Microsoft Theater?
I haven't seen any. I know Marcos Viejas was there, but he was there as an official scorer.
Yeah. He does the PBC stuff. I understand that, but I don't think they're letting him press. But anyway, it's cool. I was gonna say, man, if they are letting him press, we should look into it. We've been talking about this for months now. Like we need to scratch that itch to go to an event. Kind of get there again and get in the rhythm. Get some interviews done, especially. But I mean, I get it that everything's kind of still scarce and there's a lot of rules and regulations going. But hopefully soon. Moving on from the bubble at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas on the Plus, ESPN Plus. All right, man, I'm going to say it. I was wrong. I thought Ramirez was going to have an easier time with Victor Postol. I thought Postol he has a lot of miles on his engine and stuff like that. Postol arguably won that fight. Arguably. I mean, Ramirez got the majority decision win. I guarantee you, like we know what happens, when they were reading those scorecards and then the announcer says by majority decision, oh man, I guarantee you Robert Garcia and Jose Ramirez were shitting bricks at that moment.
You could see, I think, looking at the corner, when it got to the end of round 10, start of round 11, Garcia was just like looking at Ramirez and telling him, he's like, dude, you need to start throwing punches. You need to. And the look on his face, you could see it. Robert thought, fuck, I think we're losing this.
Yeah.
And then when he got to the last round, he was kind of like looking at him and telling him, like, dude, you have the engine, start throwing.
Right.
So, but we touched on it last week. Like, I think you thought, I think was it the 6th or 7th round? You thought Ramirez would take him out. I thought Ramirez would win. I just didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would be a walk in the park because Postol, he's only lost to some really good fighters. Terrence Crawford, Taylor, and then now Ramirez, which are probably the best guys in that division. Obviously, Crawford moved up and is now at 147, but he's a hard guy to look good against because he's so tall for that division.
Right.
Really long reach. The way that he worked that jab last night, he just knew that, Ramirez was going to have to get in on the inside. And, textbook just kept jabbing and jabbing and jabbing every time we just catch him coming in. And Ramirez early on looked lost. And so did Andre Ward. I have no idea what he was watching. After 5 rounds, he had Ramirez up 4-1. But everybody on Twitter and everybody who was watching was like, Jesus, like Postol's, beating him. He can't get inside of that jab. But then fucking Andre Ward drank the Kool-Aid and obviously was just cashing those checks and was like, oh yeah, he's winning 4-1. And for once, I actually agreed with Tim Bradley. I actually was sort of thinking, good on you, Tim. I actually spoke the truth and was just like, Dre, like, what the hell are you watching, dude? Like, Postol's jabbing him up.
So, yeah. No, you're right. The scorecards were all over the place.
Oh, you could tell I was like, Postol was going to have to knock him out to get a draw. Because everybody just had the money on
Ramirez,
the Ramirez and Taylor, unification. And as fans, I would rather see that than see, Taylor against Postol again. I'm sure there probably would have been actually there wouldn't be a rematch because he was mandatory, so there wouldn't be a contract for the rematch because he was a mandatory contender. But he would have just run away with the belts probably. So
right.
I think. I mean, it was close. I tend to. I think
it was surprising. It was surprising.
It was surprising because Ramirez looked lost.
Right.
But we had said that up until when he fought Antonio Orozco that they kind of just held him hostage in Fresno and kind of put him in there against kind of easy cannon fodder opponents because he was generating so much income. And then the Antonio Orozco fight was a good one. He won that easily. I think me and you both thought that he lost to Zepeda.
Jose Zepeda.
Yeah, I thought that. So, and then, the Maurice Hooker fight, he went in there and blew him out. But
I thought the Hooker fight, that's why I had so much confidence in my pick in him. And I said he was going to stop Postol within 6 or 7 because I thought that Hooker fight was Ramirez's that really sharpened his iron in terms of his skill. And I thought, because that was a great fight. They were going back and forth, and he stopped him. It was a great, hard-fought win. And I thought, okay, great. After that, I was like, yeah. He leveled up. He leveled up. But I know Ramirez said after the fight, he said that I think his wife he just found out she's pregnant again with their second child, and then that was affecting him, like all this news, and then like how he was supposed to obviously fight Postol in China, and then it got rescheduled, got pushed back, and his training camps said he did like 3 training camps because he wasn't sure. I mean, he admitted that. I mean, like I'm sure that's affecting a lot of fighters, but he said that. He's like, I was just all over the place and stuff like that. And
so did Postol though. Like the 3 training camps and everything he said were for the same opponent. So his opponent went through the same thing. He said that, but I was sat there thinking, yeah, but so did Postol. It's the same thing. And I think there was something else because he kind of insinuated, like I had a lot going on in my family, but then didn't. He kind of said about the child, but
he seemed emotional.
Yeah, I mean, the child, obviously, with his wife being pregnant,
right?
That would kind of be like a happy moment, I would have said. So I think there was maybe something else that he didn't want to mention to the public, but he got it at the end of the day. He got the decision. We all get the fight that we wanted, Taylor and Ramirez, at some point. So,
I mean, do you think it actually follows next? That their Top Rank will actually make the Taylor fight like next?
Well, Taylor has that mandatory coming up on September, is it the 26th? And then I think it'll be next because, giving them a couple of 3 months, 4 months for training camp and stuff like that. You're looking at February, something like that. So
maybe.
hopefully by then we can get some sort of crowd, whether it's 25%, 50% capacity, But
you think it's realistic to expect that if we get to February or March or April, whatever, whenever they're shooting for to make the Taylor Ramirez fight, do you think it's realistic to expect that Top Rank will not put on the fight because there's no fans still? Like, obviously everybody wants fans, but if there's still no fans by then, will Top Rank just say, you know what, let's hold off a little longer?
That's a good question, isn't it? The problem is how long can you keep putting off fights because of no fans? Eventually you've got to look at it as a fighter and as a promoter, and maybe the fighters just turn around and say, like, I'll take less because I need to get paid. Unless you kind of earning life-changing money like Anthony Joshua and people like that, then you probably have to fight.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't know that division at 140. I know Regis. I don't know if you saw, but on Twitter during that fight or maybe after that fight, Regis Prograis was tweeting something. I forgot what exactly he tweeted, but Carl Moretti of Top Rank tweeted back at him, saying like, "Oh, he's like, yeah, now he's gonna fight the guy that beat you or something like that." And if you looked at the Twitter thread, somebody called him out. They're like, well, what if Postol wins? Like, what if Postol beats Ramirez or something like that?
Yeah.
And then Carl Moretti put, oh, then we're fucked, And then I saw Lou DiBella commented, and he was like laughing. Like, it was true. I mean, like, obviously they want Ramirez to win, but it sucks that Regis Prograis and Mo Hooker went to the PBC because obviously they're not gonna get a Ramirez fight. It's not gonna work, but who knows? We'll see. But the 140 division it's got a lot of really good talent, but now the talent, especially with, like I said, with Hooker and Prograde going to PBC, now they're all spread out. So
it's kind of prime because, I think it looks like, they're all going to move up to 147, the money division,
right?
Which will leave it open for Teofimo Lopez to move up to 140 and probably sweep up, really.
They're not going to make Teofimo Lopez move up to 140 until Ramirez moves up to 147.
Yeah, Taylor will move up, and then so will Ramirez, and then I think Teofimo Lopez will move up, and then he'll probably sweep up at that division.
Yeah, it's a plan. I think Lopez and his team and his dad have been wanting to move out for a long time, but I think Top Rank was just kind of holding them off because they wanted Ramirez, because Ramirez was still there and they had control of that division. So they're like, okay, we'll move Ramirez up, and then Lopez can try to fight for those vacant titles or something like that, if it comes down to that, But who knows? The co-main for that card, Arnold Barboza, a friend of the show, he's been on the show before, gets a unanimous decision win over Tony Luis. Barboza remains undefeated at 24-0. Does Barboza need to fight a significant name now?
It's looking like they were going back and forth on Twitter and stuff like that. It's looking like Alex Saucedo against Arnold Barboza should be next up. And if I remember rightly, they're both top ranked, so it should be easy to make. But that performance is kind of like what we touched on last week. Is Barboza is good, but
right?
He just needs those standout performances. He needs those knockouts because that's what the paying crowd want to see. So he won pretty much every single round of this fight, but you could have easily have turned it off. Unfortunately,
right. Well, I think as you mentioned, he's a talented fighter.
Yeah.
I think Barboza is a talented fighter, but we still haven't seen somebody in there to really solidify that, he's a talented fighter, if that makes sense. He needs somebody in there across from him that's just as good or maybe a little bit better, and see how he does, Because, at 24-0, he should be getting he should have been getting significant fights at 20-0. Maybe even before that, just depending. But I think with that record, it was like things they used to criticize Deontay Wilder for being 35-0 or 33-0 or something like that, and they're like, well, you haven't fought anybody, you haven't fought any of the major heavyweights, and then he was supposed to fight Povetkin in Russia, and then Povetkin popped, but Wilder was kind of getting the same criticism where he had all these wins, all these fights, but he had no names technically of significance, if you want to call it that. I feel like Barboza is pretty much in that territory, and he needs a name. He needs a name to get in there. And like I said, me and you, we could see that. I agree that I think he passes the eye test, but he needs somebody in there to really solidify it, right? Yeah,
he does. He needs to get in there, and I think the fight with Saucedo, on paper looks good. Saucedo's, all out, loves a fight, loves a war. So, it's a good fight. And technically, I would say Barboza, is probably better than him. It's just Saucedo is just hungry and just comes to fight. So on paper, it's a good fight, step-up fight. It's a kind of a bigger name, really, on Barboza's resume if he gets the W.
Right.
Unfortunately, I just, even if he becomes a world title holder, I think Barboza is just not really going to generate that much money unless he starts, calling people out, making people want to watch him, by putting on a bit of a show, or, he just suddenly becomes really heavy-handed and starts getting guys out of there.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, he at 24-0, nobody really mentions his name in the division, or nobody says oh, Barboza this or that, or is that top rank's fault? Are they kind of moving him a little slower, or do they maybe notice that is it like a Ryan Garcia and Golden Boy thing where De La Hoya and Golden Boy, they pretty much said in interviews, you can make inferences that they can see that they think that Ryan Garcia is not, in terms of his talent, isn't ahead isn't where he should be at this point. So they're trying to, if they can, they want to give him maybe like 4 or 5 more, easier fights or prospect fights or something. But I feel like you think Top Rank is kind of doing that with Barboza, where they're kind of moving him slower along because they want him to progress more.
I think it could be that, or it could just be the fact that they have so many big names already in that weight category that he kind of, unfortunately, is just like 4th or 5th behind. Josh Taylor. You got Regis Prograis in that division. Ramirez, Zepeda, Baranchek, Postol. There's how many? 4 of those are top ranks. So he's kind of slipped down the pecking order.
Well, what if they're trying to hope for, like, Top Rank's trying to hope for maybe like a Teofimo Lopez Barboza at 140?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that they keep Barboza on the back burner until all those guys step up, and then they've already got a few opponents kind of ready made for Teofimo. So I can see that, because I think Taylor and Ramirez have both kind of spoken about that. If whoever wins that undisputed fight, that'll be them at 140 and they'll move up to 147. So potentially they only have, maybe another 1 or 2 fights, and then they're going to move up. So
Top Rank's chomping at the bit to have Taylor and Ramirez move up to 147 because they need some fighters for Terrence Crawford. So they're just like, oh, hell yeah, we got 2 guys now. So yeah, they're waiting on that. They're definitely waiting on that. And then rounding out that card, Elvis Rodriguez remains undefeated at 9-0. Actually, no. He has a loss. But he gets the 3rd round KO over Cody Wilson. What'd you think of Rodriguez's performance, Mike?
Just another great prospect coming out of Wildcard, isn't he? He's got everything, really. He just goes in there, knocks people out, seems to have good timing. Doesn't seem to rush anything. He just kind of knows, I'm heavy-handed and, the knockout will come. I don't need to push it. So he's definitely, I think, somebody that most people in the boxing hemisphere think he's going to go on to bigger and better things. And, he's got an award-winning coach in, Freddie Roach in his corner. So it's going to be a long, I think he's going to have a long career, and somebody that, could potentially can move up through the divisions as well, because, he's tall, kind of lanky at that division. So I think, as he gets older, he'll fill out a little bit more, and on to bigger and better things. But I think they can probably move him a little bit quicker than they are, because, fighting that guy, Cody Wilson, who's like 9-3, he's got a winning record, but I think, you could potentially move him a little bit quicker, onto some names that we kind of know. Right.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it's never a bad thing when you're fighting out of, I think everybody knows the notorious gyms that usually produce some pretty decent talent, especially here in Southern California. Wild Card, Robert Garcia's gym, I know we tweeted out something about like superheroes and Robert Garcia's gym on Twitter. It did pretty decent, but
that gym, dude,
it's crazy. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. It's crazy, man. Then moving on to fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 5th of September, once again from the Bubble. The Bubble's been busy for the last several months. The Bubble of the MGM on regular ESPN in Las Vegas. Jamel Herring, 3rd time's a charm, hopefully.
Yes, hope so, yeah.
Puts up his WBO super featherweight world title against Jonathan Okendo. And then, for people who might not be aware, this is the 3rd scheduled time that this fight has been scheduled. The first 2 times, Herring tested positive for COVID-19. But then it was weird because, like, the day after he tested negative, and, like, it was just, I don't know. It could be like a false positive thing. Who knows? It was a total shit show for it. I feel bad for Jamel Herring, just training, and, he's been posting a lot of stuff where he's been staying in shape, and, but obviously he's a dedicated fighter, at least from what we see. But what do you think about this title defense?
I mean, selfishly, I want Jamel Herring to win so we can get that big Cal Frampton fight. It's kind of a test for him. Jonathan Okendo was coming off a recent decision defeat to Roach, the initial out Charles Huerta last September. He's 5-1 since December of 2015. So he's been in and around. I think it should be a good test, but I think, Jamel Herring, it's one of those fighters that kind of looks at his opponent, kind of works out, where the flaws are, and then manages to game plan around that. And I think Herring will come out. I think it'll either be like a late stoppage, or I think Herring will win on points. And then, hopefully we'll get to finally see the Herring against Carl Frampton fight, which we've all been waiting for. So,
well, that's what they're building towards. We'll see. And Jamel Herring's obviously been on a show before. We appreciate that, but he's a friend of the show. But I don't know. I feel like Herring's that type of fighter where he's very dedicated. He works hard, and that's gotten him to where he's at. He's a hard worker. But I feel like that he's that type of fighter where it doesn't matter who he's in there with. Like, he always, like, whether he wants to or not, like, the other fighter always gets a good fight at him and, like, kind of pushes him. Like, it's not like – I feel like Jamel Herring's not that type of talent where he goes in there and he just blows you out. Like, like a Mayweather or something like that, or like a Pacquiao. Like, you can obviously see the talent gap. But there's fighters out there, and I think Jamel Herring is one of these where they just put in so much work in their training in the gym, and, like, they worked hard to get where they're at. Everybody worked hard, like, in terms of champions, but I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to describe it. Like, he just it's strange. I don't know. I'm trying to find the words for it, but
it does feel like when you watch Jamel, it's kind of, he'll kind of fight down sometimes, I think, to their level. And, instead of just coming in like fifth gear and just blowing the guy away, like, if that guy's like in, second gear, Jamel will either drop down to second gear or maybe third gear and, be kind of winning it. But he never just comes in and just goes, like, I'm levels above you, and just, blows them out of there.
Right.
But, he has had a couple of performances. I thought, the fight against Lamont Roach Jr., right. I think, a few people thought he was going to struggle there. And, I thought that was, a good performance from him, really.
Yeah. It was a good performance. You're right. That's a good point. But, I mean, we'll see. Because I think, like, I like Jamel Herring, and I'm picking him to beat Oquendo, but I think Frampton's I would pick Frampton in their fight. I think Frampton's just a little bit more talented, and but like I said, you can't ever count out Jamel Herring out. Just, what do you think?
I would.
His height obviously helps him. It's an advantage.
Yeah, his height helps him. I mean, I could see. I don't know, because Carl Frampton as recently has had some performances where he won, but like we said, like, he should have been levels above them, and should really have blown them out. But it's hard to say, because is it just because Carl's been on world level, right? He's been the guy that's the main event. He's sold out arenas, and when he's kind of coming back on, like, just fights that are like just a little dust up, just a little run out to get him out there, is he just not rising to the occasion? And if these two go to battle and it's in Ireland and they manage to get a crowd there, and it's a stadium and everyone's singing Carl's name, then we're going to see the best of him, for one night again, where he wins another title at a different weight category and goes down in history.
Right.
I think that sort of having that on the plate, I think, will hopefully help Carl step up. And I love Jamel, but I have to go with my, someone from Britain, don't I, in a fight like that.
I get it.
I think Carl will hopefully get the win. As much as I love Jamel, he's been on the podcast twice, and there's always a great interview. And but sorry, Jamel.
You're going with the Jackal, Carl Frampton.
If and when they make it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, they make that fight quick. I know the cool thing about Jamel Herring is that he's very vocal about his fights. So, he's very active on Twitter and everything. So I'm sure he'll be pushing hard to make that Carl Frampton fight as quick as possible. So, but we'll see. Also on that card, Steven Nelson, 16-0, goes up against DeAndre Ware, 13-2-2. What do you think of this matchup?
Somebody else out with the big Bomac gym, Steve Nelson. So he's been in camp with Terence Crawford and Jamel Herring, and those guys seem to get themselves in crazy good shape. If you watch on Instagram, crazy, huh? They do like loads of biking, running, just nonstop at that gym, and they seem to have a good time with writing stuff all over people's cars and blocking them in and stealing each other's cars and stuff. Seems like a good time at that gym.
Yeah.
I think it's another kind of fight that Steve Nelson should win. I think, he just moved down from light heavyweight. So I think it's just one of those ones where they're trying to get him used to the weight category, used to the gym. So I think it's just a performance, like a hand-picked opponent, shall we say.
Right.
So I don't see anything other than a Steve Nelson win, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's an expected win that he should obviously get, right? So, like we talked about, that happens. That happens all the time. It's like that we just talked about at the beginning of the show, Daniel Dubois,
A-side, B-side?
I mean, would you even call them B-sides? Is it like A-side and D-side?
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
Like if you want to kind of assign a letter to it, well, who knows? And then rounding out that card, like I said, this Saturday from the bubble, Jesse Rodriguez, 11-0, goes up against. Is this a typo, Mike? Is this Daniel Rivera?
I think it's Geniel Rivera. Could be Daniel.
What?
Could be.
Oh, well, you did a typo last week, so.
Autocorrect, yeah.
Yeah, what did you do?
Babic got changed to basic.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. Everybody messaged me after that, like, oh, you messed up. So we got a lot of criticism because of that. What do you think about this matchup?
Like you just touched on, A-side, B-side, Jesse Rodriguez coming up, San Antonio native, 11-0. So I think really it's just another showcase for him, against Rivera. He looks a good prospect. We're getting seems to be more and more people coming out of San Antonio with Robert Garcia's gym kind of got that little reach, that second gym out in Texas.
Oh, that's true.
So it seems like we get a lot of guys that either train there and then they'll come over to California for sparring. So it seems to be more names really coming from that area.
That's cool. Yeah, I forgot that Garcia opened up a gym over there too. So and, you don't hear much about it because obviously his main one is over here in Southern California. But that's true. That's true. He's tapping into that talent pool in San Antonio, which is good. Seems like they have a lot of guys there who might be undiscovered at the moment, at least for now. But news and notes of the show: Emmanuel Navarrete, the WBO junior lightweight world champion. Is this like confirmed? He's scheduled to fight Ruben Villa, or actually no, it's vacant. He doesn't have the title. I thought he had the title.
Navarrete vacated and moved up.
That's what it was.
And then they were supposed to put Navarrete against Magdaleno. The money wasn't enough for Magdaleno, so Jesse decided to peace out and moved on to bigger and better things, he hopes. They offered him $200,000 and then he turned it down. He went to purse bids. The purse bids came back lower. He got $100,000.
Oh my gosh.
So supposedly Top Rank said, you know what, we'll give you the $200,000. And Magdaleno said no, turned it down. So next in line was Ruben Villa. Obviously, we know him from Thompson's boxing cards.
Yeah, Thompson's boxing coming in again.
So talented fighter from Northern California. Kind of the same as Barboza for me. Talented, selects his shots really well, but just lacks that pop and lacks that, that showcase, showtime sort of thing about him that makes you want to see him, makes you want to watch him. That's just unfortunately for me. He is good. He is good. And if you love your stylish boxing and you don't mind watching a lot of 12-round decisions, then, Ruben Villa is, somebody that you'll...
Hey, but if he wins and he's a world champion in Thompson boxing, I think at this point, Danny Roman was the only world champion under the Thompson's boxing's banner for the longest time. And obviously he lost his titles, but I mean, it'd be great for Thompson's boxing to have another world champion under their belt.
That's true. Yeah. It's lovely. It's like a little boxing promotion out of California. So, it'd be good for them, big things.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. But I'm excited for those, especially when it's a Thompson's boxing fighter who gets an opportunity. Just because obviously they're pretty local. They're a pretty local promoter here in the Southern California area. I think it's cool to see when they get on the big stage or they get a title shot, because you're like, oh yeah, these guys fight right here all the time. Like, we have a lot of access to them because they put on a lot of local shows within our area, which is cool. And then also, this was on the broadcast of the ESPN card, the Top Rank card. That reported talks are underway for surprise, surprise, for Terrence Crawford to face Kell Brook sometime in mid-November. And then we talked about just before we came on here like we did, but I thought it was so strange that ESPN put up a graphic and pretty much said like, oh, Kell Brook has been reportedly been offered $1.5 million to fight Terrence Crawford. And it's like, I thought it was strange because it's just like, okay, first of all, Terrence Crawford is a top-ranked fighter. This is a top-ranked broadcast on ESPN, and they're saying, oh, yeah, this Kell Brook's been offered $1.5 million reportedly. And it's like, what do you mean reportedly? You guys are top rank. You guys know what you offered. Like, we were talking about how it was so strange that they put that information out there, kind of like, because you never see stuff like that. Like, it's rare to put it on TV like that. I just thought it was so strange. I mean, what'd you think?
Yeah, it was definitely odd. You don't normally see, promotions kind of, even though it is a top-ranked show, kind of talking about rumors as such. I don't know whether they're trying to release it to try to kind of back Kell Brook into a corner to take the fight. Just kind of odd.
That's what I thought.
It's a name that I think we've been talking about on the podcast as a potential Terrence Crawford fight for a year and a half. It's been rumored, because I think he got offered before, but, Kell wanted more money, and then Kell's been sat on the shelf for, God knows how long. So he kind of needs to really cash himself out because I don't see he's kind of getting to the point where he's irrelevant now.
Pretty much, yeah. And you know what? I mean, like, I think we talked about Kell Brook, the Triple G fight really affected him. He should have never went up to 160 and fought Triple G, but, it is what it is. But Kell Brook, if that never would have happened, Kell Brook arguably could have been right up there with the best at 147 pounds. Yeah. But who knows, man? Like, and the thing that sucks for Crawford is he's not. Yeah, he's obviously going to be the favorite, but he won't get the credit. He won't get the credit when he wins, if he wins. Like the only way this gets any type of big attention in terms of the outcome is if Brook wins.
Yeah, either Brook wins or Crawford gets him out there in kind of in a stunning fashion, knocks him out. Because right. The thing, the problem is Kell Brook even going to make weight? He walks around a lot higher than 147, and he's not fought for a long time.
Chocolate brownie.
Everyone's got that, the coronavirus. It was 15 pounds that we've all put on.
I guess not me, man. But who knows? I think it was so strange that they put it up there that they, I think, like you said, they're trying to corner Kell Brook or at least put pressure on him to like, oh yeah, well now people know, so they're trying to get a one up. But I think Terrence Crawford has to put his foot down and tell Top Rank, hey, you know what? Let me just go over there to Showtime. Let me go over there to Fox. I'm better than these guys. Let me go take their title. I honestly think that's what needs to happen, because the PBC guys aren't going to come to Showtime or to ESPN Top Rank. They're not. Terrence Crawford has to tell Bob Arum Top Rank, let me go over there, and he'd probably be the favorite besides this Spence fight. I mean, Sean Porter too, but arguably Crawford could be the favorite against all of them, and it'd be close. It'd be great matchups, but I don't know. But imagine how much his stock would rise if Crawford literally said, hey, I'm going over there to Showtime. I'm going over there to Fox. And he fights a Spence. He fights, a Sean Porter or whatever. And he beats them. And then he's like, yeah, there you go. He's like, I told you I could do it. Boom. And then you put in the contract, okay, boom. Like, you tell, okay, I'm going to go over here to you guys. Okay, and then the next fight, if I win, one of you guys has to come over here to ESPN. I think he has to do that after this fight. Like, I mean, especially after Kell Brook. I mean, he's way past it, but I think he has to do it, right?
Yeah, I think we've been campaigning for this for quite a while. Just he needs to kind of just start, pushing the boat and making, pushing them into the corner to the point where they have to make the fights, because he's going to get to the point where he retires and if he could just keep beating up on all these, old British fighters or kind of just recite. Well, he's fought Ricky Burns, Amir Khan, and then Kell Brook.
Postal. Well, that was 140. Man.
But he needs to fight somebody. I think everybody's kind of getting sick and tired of listening to it. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. If the coronavirus and having this pretty much this entire year written off isn't enough to kind of scare promotions and fighters into making the bigger fights, then I don't know what is, dude.
Well said. And then lastly, before we wrap up the show here, Tyson Fury in the news again as he called out Anthony Joshua, and he tells him to, quote, grow a pair and fight him in December. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you take this, but obviously Fury's a good talker. He likes to make headlines and stuff. Like, I didn't really see anything other than just banter. This is just banter to me, but...
Because where is Wilder, though? It's like, there's nothing on social media. He's not posting anything. There's nothing of him in the gym. Like, is he just taking time off to, like, mentally...
I think it's a mental thing, yeah. It's a reset.
Because, he was, kind of, like... A lot of it was kind of just an image he put on, just to try to get himself through the fights. And he kind of created this persona. And then, when the persona was kind of, he was brutally beaten up in that last fight, and to the point where, Conor had to throw in the towel. I'm thinking that he's just taking himself just to, mentally prepare. And are we going to see it? Is he eventually just going to pull out and, go and fight somebody else?
I don't think we're going to see Fury Wilder 3 this year.
It needs a crowd. There's too much money on the table.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think Fury or... I mean, I can see Fury fighting, but even I wouldn't be surprised if none of these big heavyweights fight. The only one who might be able to might actually go in there and fight is Anthony Joshua. But even then, I don't think any of these Tyson Furies, Deontay Wilders, Anthony Joshua, I don't think we're gonna see them the rest of this year.
I think the only way we see the big fights is if, like ESPN did for Teofimo Lopez against Vasyl Lomachenko,
right?
They stumped up a lot of the money. And I think the only way we're going to see the heavyweight fights is if they do it in like Saudi Arabia, where the site fee is so large that it covers the purses and everything that needs to be covered because there's no fans. I honestly think that's the only way we'll see them this year, because leaving between 10 to 20 million on the table because of no fans, depending on, the gate, depending on who it is.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. You can't just tell Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Bob Arum just to pay that so we could see it. The fighters, they earn that much money, that are they going to risk those paydays just for us? No, they're not.
Yeah, we would hope they would, but right.
In reality, they're not going to, because, if they're getting 5 million, but then they lose, they take 2 million just to fight, they lose, then they're not going to get, a big payday again for a while, and because that's just how it works. You lose, your money goes down. So
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think Tyson Fury is just kind of stirring the pot here with these quotes and stuff like that. Obviously, he likes to talk, so he's just stirring the pot, calling out Anthony Joshua to grow a pair and all that stuff. Like, there's no way those two are going to fight without a crowd, because they'll sell out Wembley or whatever. That they will. There's no way those two are going to fight without a crowd. That's absolutely. I'd be surprised if that happens. But who knows? Who knows, man? Who knows? But I guess we'll see. But, thanks again, guys, for listening to episode 95 of the Last Round podcast, almost to 100 in terms of official episodes, in-studio episodes. And before we sign off here, go ahead, Mike, once again, let them know where they can find us.
At the Last Round 12 on Twitter and Instagram. And then, obviously, be sure to tune in next week. I don't think there is any fight previews. I don't think there's any fights on the weekend of the 12th.
Nope, so, I don't think so. I mean, it should have been Canelo. But
we'll try and get a guest in to talk to, and then, obviously, we'll just update you on all the news and notes. Yeah. We had guests, just so people can, obviously, we're two weeks in a row that we don't have guests, because most of the time we have guests. But, we had some schedule conflicts with people, and then, we had some people lined up. So a pretty good one today.
But unfortunately, he had to reschedule. So hopefully we can reschedule him for the future. But it's not like we're not getting guests anymore, guys. We are, but we just had some scheduling conflicts.
And we're trying to get a big one for 100.
Yeah. So if you guys listening to this and you guys have any ideas for our 100th episode guests, message us, DM us, tweet us, leave a comment on IG, message us on Instagram, all that stuff, Facebook or whatever, and let us know. Or trying to think about who we could get. Right, Mike?
Yeah, if you could think of anybody, any ideas, or if you friends of anybody that would be a good guest, just message us, and then we'll try and reach out and get somebody a little bit different, somebody we haven't had.
Somebody we haven't had. You're right. So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.